Welcome to another Coil Chat, and I wanted to break down this story about Sudiksha Konanki, and I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong, but this has kind of been a story that's been all over the news the last few weeks, and I wanted to just break it down so that we can kind of talk about it and get all the facts that we do know. If you don't know, she is the girl that went missing in the Dominican Republic, and it was very, very eerily similar to Natalie Holloway's disappearance. And so there was just a lot of news about it, a lot of speculation. She is a 20-year-old. Her hometown is Loudoun County, Virginia, and she was a student at the University of Pittsburgh. She seemed like a really bright girl. She was studying neuroscience, and she decided for spring break that she would go down to Punta Cana with a group of friends. They were staying at the Rio Republica Resort, which is an adults-only resort in the Dominican Republic. And first of all, as a mom, I think, man, I don't know if I would feel safe about my daughter going down to the Dominican Republic. You hear about a lot of these stories. An adult-only resort means that there's going to be a lot of alcohol and there's not really going to be a lot of accountability. And then, she's 20. She's not even 21, so she's not legally able to drink in the United States, but she can drink in the Dominican Republic. A lot of things just went through my mind. And then I remembered she's an adult. Like, her parents can't tell her no. I mean, she can do what she wants. And this is what happened in the night of her disappearance, which was on March 5th and 6th of 2025. So in the evening, Sudiksha and her friends went out for the night. And at some point, they met two men at the resort. And one of them is Joshua Ribby, I think is how you would say it, Riibe. He's a 22-year-old. He's from Iowa, and he is attending St. Cloud State University. And then there was another unidentified individual that was with them. The group headed to the beach together. And then on March 6, 2025, early morning, surveillance footage captured Sudiksha walking arm in arm with Ribby at 4:15 a.m. toward the beach. Now, her friends left around 5 a.m. because you see surveillance of them walking back to the hotel, but she remained behind with Ribby, and Ribby later stated that he and Sudiksha went for a swim into the water. It's not really clear if they were drinking. I think that probably was happening because of what he claimed and stated to the investigators. So what happened in the water is Joshua is claiming they were hit by a powerful wave and they were pulled into deeper water. He says he actually, because he was a lifeguard, he was able to get to Sudiksha and get back to her safety. But after that, he was so tired from being able to get her back to the beach that he passed out from exhaustion. When he woke up, she was gone. And he had just assumed that she left on her own. This is what he's saying. However, she was never seen again. Her clothing was left at the beach. On March 6th, there was an immediate response. When her friends realized she was missing, they alerted the hotel staff and authorities. And then the Dominican Republic police began search efforts, including drones, rescue divers searching in the ocean, and interviews with resort staff and guests. And then it even got to where there was involvement with the U.S. authorities because the U.S. Embassy in the Dominican DR got involved. The FBI said that they were going to provide assistance, and her family flew to the DR to see if they can help in the search. Initial investigation, since Joshua was the last known person to see her alive, he was obviously going to be named as a person of interest, but never a suspect. That's how they start, so that they can start getting information and hopefully get either probable cause to then arrest him as a suspect, or they were going to have to let him go. Now, the Dominican authorities, they interviewed him multiple times. They also temporarily held his passport to prevent him from leaving. And then through this, there was a lot of news articles that were coming out that his testimonies or his interviews had conflicting information. And so when those came out, everybody, just a wave of people on the internet were saying, see, he's guilty because his stories match up. Of course, we didn't know what was being said in the interview. There was just third-hand hearsay that was coming out to the news agency that determined he was giving these accounts that were different. And if you're an investigator and you're looking at this, those are the first things you look at to determine if somebody is lying, is if the stories do not match up. But ultimately, as of now, they have found that there was no evidence of foul play. And so when everybody was saying this is a Natalie Holloway and her disappearance and the person that was of interest for her, there was different accounts and they never could really get to the bottom of it. They could never find her remains. Obviously, that is a major problem. So what do you do if they can't get enough information to charge you as a suspect. Well, they have to let you go. They determined that there was no foul play and that they didn't have enough to arrest him, and therefore he was being cleared, which means that they had to return his passport immediately. But for some reason, the Dominican officials held his passport for several days. So the US Embassy came involved and said, hey, if you're not going to give his passport back, we're going to do what's necessary to get him a new passport, which on March 20th, they were able to get him and he was able to leave the country. But on March 20th, he had to fly to Puerto Rico. He was detained there, Joshua was, due to passport issues, but then he was later released. So he has since now returned to the US and he has been reunited with his family in Iowa. Let's talk about Sudiksha's family's response and the current status. Now, her parents initially held out for a miracle. Obviously, you hope maybe she walked down the beach or she went and she was sleeping somewhere. After weeks with no trace of her body, her family is now saying that they believe she drowned. And they also are now saying that they do not suspect foul play and have asked the Dominican Republic to declare her legally dead. By doing that and getting a death certificate allows them to start working on being able to then, do a funeral, do probate to close out her affairs in the United States. Official status as of now, her body has not been recovered. Unfortunately, this could be one of those situations where we may never recover it, or we may be able to get, a body in a few days if it washes up on shore. It's just kind of a wait and see to determine. Now, Dominica is still treating this case as an active investigation, and the US Embassy is obviously still continually trying to provide support to the family. If anything obviously new is updated, then things can change. The Dominica can eventually charge Joshua with a crime if there is an additional information that goes forward, but at this time, they do not have enough to detain him or to charge him with a crime. It's really, really unfortunate. Obviously, with the family coming out and making a statement that they don't believe that there was any foul play, also, I think, plays into the fact that whatever Joshua had to say, his reactions to this could be that, he's telling the truth and that they believe that this was just an absolute tragic accident. So at this time, that's all we know. We just obviously wish that family so much love and light. They're going through just one of the worst things ever. But if you have any questions or follow up, or if you have comments on this story, please comment below and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well.